Hi everyone, understanding communication, development and development communication is the course. Please make sure you hit the like button and at the same time subscribe, because this is the means I'll be sending you assignments and also a link for your tests. So let's kickstart with the topic, which is understanding communication, development and development communication. What are we trying to achieve here? We're trying to give these three different concepts their own specific meaning so as to serve as a platform for us to drive this course. So we'll start with the first one, which is communication. I want to believe most of us are familiar with the word communication. However, there are different disciplines in all of our courses of study, and majority of this discipline get to have their own definite definition of their own terminologies, or have their own definite definition for the word communication. And what does communication mean? To a photocopier, the person who does photocopies or is into the business of doing photocopies for people, he or she would define the word communication based on his own meaning, which will be different from that of what a marketer will define his or her own. For a psychologist, they perceive communication as a process by which an individual, which is the communicator, transmits stimuli, usually in verbal symbols, to modify the behavior of other individuals, that is, to who they are communicating with, in order for them to do what? Modify their behavior. While for a sociologist, they will define communication as what? As a mechanism through which human relations exist and develop or in a society. So for psychologists now, the definition of communication is different, while it is also different for a sociologist. If you ask someone in a medical line or a philosopher or even a communicator, they are all going to give you or break down for you the different meaning of communication based on their own discipline. Without wasting much of our time, the word communication is from the Latin word communis, which means common or shared understanding. So communication is therefore a purposeful effort to establish commonness between a source and the receiver, which is, according to Scrum in 1965, whatever is being shared could be associated with knowledge, experience, thoughts, ideas, suggestions, opinions, feelings, comments, etc. We actually need to now do what? Define communication here as a process of exchanging or sharing information, ideas, and feelings between the sender and the receiver through a channel. So it involves not only spoken word. When we're talking about the word communication, it involves not only spoken words, no, but rather you get to have non-verbal symbols too as well. It involves not only spoken or written words, it also involves non-verbal means of communication by way of gestures, symbols, signs, and so on and so forth. So however, there are what is called elements of communication. And what are the elements of communication? We can break it down into 7. The first one is a stimulus, the second is a source, the third, messages, the fourth one is a medium or channel, the fifth is a receiver, the sixth one is a feedback, and the last one is noise. So we'll start with the first one, which is stimulus. Stimulus is actually something that happens in our brain that triggers communication. We can see that's something I just said can be in form of an idea, in form of a message in our own head, which has been triggered, that allows us to communicate. There are times when you just remember some things in your head you need to tell someone, or there's a particular information you need to pass across to someone. That thing is a stimulus that gets triggered for you to be able to do what? Communicate it to the receiver. So the source, you as the person sending the message, you can refer to yourself as what? As a source, while the message itself is the idea. The medium or the channel are the means of transmission, while the receiver is the person receiving the message, or the person that decodes the message you're sending. The feedback is some form of response you're giving back to the sender, while the noise can be referred to as something that distorts the communication flow, that distracts the attention of the sender or even the receiver. Noise may occur in the form of transmission in the channel or the medium. So the next one is the process of communication. What is the process of communication? Communication is a process because it is dynamic, it is recursive, it is ongoing, it is continuous and cyclical. So there is no recognizable beginning and end, neither is there a rigid sequence of interaction. But we may try to identify how the process of communication begins. The process of communication begins with what? The first word, stimulation. So this is the point that the source sees the need. There's always the need to communicate. The source here sees the need to communicate. It receives a stimulus in his brain that triggers him to communicate to the receiver through a particular channel. So we can see the receiver, the sender here, or the persons that his or her stimulus is being triggered as what? As the encoder or the sender. The next one, which is encoding, as the next step of the process of communication, it is the encoding or the encoder. The source processes the message it wants to communicate into a form that will be understandable to the receiver. This may be a feeling, opinion, experiment, etc. So the source is the one that's being affected by this stimulus, which is being triggered into a form of what? Communication. So we can see the person doing the encoding as the encoder or the sender. The next one is the transmission. What do we mean by transmission? Transmission simply means the medium or the channel being used to send the message across to the receiver through a chosen medium or a channel. So we have the reception. The reception here simply means the receiver gets the message that is sent from the source. So we can see the reception here as what? As the receiver. So the reception is the receiver that gets the message that is being sent from the source or the encoder. Well, the decoding here simply means the message is being processed. The act of decoding simply means the message is being processed and understood and also interpreted by the receiver. So we can as well see what? The reception as what? As the receiver. Well, the last one is the response. The response can also be referred to as the word feedback. It's the reaction of the receiver to the message received in form of what? In form of a feedback, which is necessary in every form of communication. Next, we go for the context of communication. The context here means that there are actually different levels at which communication occurs. It can also be referred to as the kinds of communication that are available. So we have 5 different types or kinds here. The first one is the intrapersonal communication. Let me take that again. The first one is the intrapersonal communication. The second is the interpersonal communication. The third is the group communication. The fourth is a public communication, while the fifth is mass communication. For intrapersonal communication, it means the communication is within you, and the channel you're using to communicate here is the brain, which helps in information processing and also in decision making. And there is also a means of feedback, because you talk to yourself, you discard certain ideas and replace them with others. So interpersonal communication takes place within an individual, while interpersonal communication, for interpersonal communication, it occurs between 2 people or more than 2 people who gets to send and receive messages within each other. And there is also an advantage of what? Of immediate feedback. They do this process of communication verbally and non-verbally, and the channel used mostly in their form of communication is sight and sound. Sight and sound simply means they can see each other and at the same time they can hear each other. It also offers the greatest opportunity for feedback, which is what? Immediate feedback. The next one is group communication. This form of communication occurs among a small number of people for the purpose of solving problems. Now we have what is known as, on our social media platforms today, we have what is known as the WhatsApp group, the Telegram group, and even Telegram channels. So this group must be small enough so that each member has a chance to interact with all other members in that group. So the communication process in group communication is more complex than in interpersonal communication, because in group communication, group members are made up of several senders and even receivers. The moment you're sending something on WhatsApp, you see it above the tagline, you see the sender's name already, you see so and so typing. Let's say Karima typing, Taiwo typing, Mubarak typing, Oyedamola typing. That tells you there's someone about to send a particular message, and you all are at the advantage of receiving the same message at the same time. As a result of this, there are more chances for confusion. That is why so many WhatsApp or Telegram groups have rules and regulations telling you irrelevant messages are not allowed. So messages are also more structured in small groups, because the group is meeting for a specific purpose. Let's take for instance our Telegram channel. The purpose of meeting there, or the purpose of setting up that channel, is for academic purpose. The next one is the public communication. For public communication, there is a sender, who we refer to as the speaker, who sends a message that is the speech he or she is rendering, or the speech is relaying, or the speech is reading to an audience. Let's take for instance politicians. A political aspirant here is the sender, who sends his political campaign messages or political manifestos in form of a speech to an audience who are the masses, seeking out for their vote, seeking out for their support, or seeking for their opinion, or seeking for their suggestions as regards what they want the government to do for them. So the speaker usually delivers a highly structured message using some channels, as in interpersonal or small group communication. So the channel here are more exaggerated than in interpersonal communication. And for public communication, the voice is actually louder. The voice is louder, and the gestures are more expansive because the audience is bigger. I hope you're able to get it. So additional visual channels such as slides or the computer program PowerPoint might be used as well to further buttress the point of the speaker. So the next one is mass communication. We all know what the term mass communication means. It means mass communication here means the means of disseminating information or messages to a large, anonymous and scattered heterogeneous masses of receivers, which may be far removed from the message sources through the use of sophisticated equipment. So it is a sending of message through a mass medium to a large number of people that are diverse, dispersed, and heterogeneous in nature. When we say sophisticated medium or sophisticated equipment, we are referring to the likes of radio, television, newspaper. The next concept to define here is the word development. And what do we mean by development? According to Rogers, he sees development as a widely participatory process of social change in a society, intended to bring about social and material advancements, including greater equality, freedom, and other valued qualities for the majority of the people through gaining control over their environment. Through what? Through gaining control over their environment. We are familiar with the word developing countries and developed countries. Why do we say they are developed? Let's take for instance this time of COVID-19, where we all are asked to stay indoors, and the government promised to provide palliative measures to see that people do not go hungry. What do we have? For one community, all they get is just what? A bag of rice and 4 breads, which we perceive as being disrespectful to the Nigerian citizens. While in Canada or in developed countries, they deliver this food to them for them to even eat for a week, which is way too much for them to even eat or even consume for that 1 week. And comes another week where they are able to get another one again. I hope we are able to get the difference between a developed country and a developing country. So which one is developed? That is development for you. In a for development, Rogers sees it as what? As a widely participatory process. This widely participatory process is done by virtually everybody within the community, done by virtually everybody within such nation. Participatory process of what? Of social change in a society. And why do they participate? They participate for them to be able to do what? Bring about social and material advancements about their own country, which include greater equality, freedom, and other valued qualities such as healthcare, free education, water, power supply, etc. for the majority of the people through gaining control over their own environment. So Rogers further stressed the endogenous dimension of development here by looking at it from the perspective of the fact that people must participate by exploiting their own environment to improve their situation rather than expecting development to fall from heaven. So this is expected of us too as Nigerians. We shouldn't expect the government alone to get this done. We as citizens of the country should also look inward to look at what we can do to further develop our own society. Inayatullah, as cited in Shuala 2003, also gave example of the word development, and to say development is change towards pattern of society that allows better realization of human values, that allow a society greater control or gain greater control over its environment and over its political destiny, and that enables its individuals to gain increased control over themselves. But what do we have in Nigeria as against the definition of what Inayatollah gave? It is the opposite. Where is the developmental change here? We don't have it. That further allows or better the realization of human values, that increases the number of healthcare, the healthcare system we have in Nigeria, that increases the free education we have, that increases the water supply, the power supply too as well. One of the reasons why I'm having difficulty sending this video across to you guys is the issue of power supply. We don't have it. I actually need to get down to some place, charge them just because I need to make a lecture note, or probably in lecture video or in lecture voice note to get across to you guys. So the development there is not what we have. So Toda and Smith also identify 3 objectives of development, which I want you to take key note of. The first one is to increase the availability and widen the distribution of basic life sustaining goods such as food, shelter, health, and protection. These 4 things mentioned here that are expected to be increased are actually the basic things people need in their country for them to be able to say, yes, our country is developed. The first one is food, the second is shelter, the third is health, and the last one is protection, which is security of lives and properties. They also look at it to say that development, another objective of development is to raise levels of living in addition to higher incomes. To raise the level of living in addition to higher incomes. The provision of more jobs, better education, and greater attention to cultural and human values, all of which will serve not only enhance material well-being, but also to generate greater individual and national self-esteem. So when we talk about raising the levels of living in addition to higher incomes, if federal government today, but if they are implementing the minimum wage to 30,000 naira, and the cleaner, ordinary cleaner, is getting 30,000 naira, one, they've been able to increase Israel income and also increase their living condition. They've added value to their living condition. If they're able to provide more jobs for graduates immediately after they're done with school, it also adds to the national development. If they're able to give better and quality free education to the people, it also adds to the national development. So the cultural and human values too as well also needs to be upheld as one of the objectives of development. And the last one is to expand the range of economic and social choices available to individuals and nations by freeing them from servitude and dependence, not only in relation to other people and nations. States must also force ignorance and human misery out of their own confines. What do we mean by this? Majority of us rather go to travel abroad to settle down there rather than stay in Nigeria and wait for manna to fall from heaven. We all want to be in the developed countries where things happen for them, where their state government have already drawn out a plan, a blueprint on how the development of such country will grow. That way, it gives the people some form of self-esteem as regards to what we have in the second point of objectives of development. So the social choices available to individuals and nations actually comes from the fact that they need the society of the day or the government of the day need to free them from servitude and dependence of the government. Rather, they need to provide palliative measures or things they will need to cushion the effects of them depending on the government all the time. So if there's a means by which the government can actually roll out jobs for the people do not need the government to get things done. Even those who actually who are actually artisans, if there is light, if there is enough power for them to work, they would rather stay down with what they are doing and get their jobs done, which will also add to the national income or add to the national development one way or the other. And the last concept there, which is development communication. We've talked about the word communication, and we've also highlighted the 3 different objectives of the word development. And now let us look at the word development communication by marrying both of them together. Quebrow 1975, as cited in NATO and NATO 2010, defines development communication as the art and science of human communication applied to the speedy transformation of a country and the masses, that is the people, from a state of poverty to a more dynamic state of economic growth, which make possible greater social equality and the larger fulfillment of the human potentials. Now, I want us to look at this definition of development communication as cited by Anato and Anato. Anato and Anato are able to look at the word development communication by looking at it as what? As the art and science of human communication, which can be applied to the speedy transformation of a country and its people from a state of what? Of poverty to a more dynamic state of economic growth, which makes possible greater social equality and larger fulfillment of human potential. Here we need to look at all the necessary means of communication that can be deployed towards national development. And how do we get this done? It simply means by using all these means of communication to bring about speedy transformation of a community. Let us start with the community first. By bringing out its people from a state of abject poverty to a more dynamic state of self-reliance that will further promote economic growth and at the same time promote greater social equality and larger fulfillment of human potentials. So it simply involves the use of what? The social media. Every means of communication has to be deployed towards saying the fact that people need to be removed from abject poverty. When we talk about abject poverty, it's not just about financial stability. It's not about financial stability alone, but rather education-wise, their healthcare system, power supply. How can we get people to self-reliance without actually needing to wait for the government to educate them, without actually waiting for the government to give them power supply, without waiting for the government to give them free education? How do we use this media to educate the masses? How do we use it to cushion this poverty effect on them? That is what development communication is always about, bringing all those means, all this context of communication I mentioned earlier into play, from intrapersonal, interpersonal, to group communication, to public and even mass communication, and marrying it together with the word development so as to bring what? Development to the society. So Moyemeka also defines development communication as the application of the process of communication to the development process. I hope you are able to get it now. So this is also in line with the definition of Ballips. In 1988, we defined development communication, or sees development communication as a social process aimed at producing a common understanding or a consensus among the participants in a development initiative. This is where we actually need to stop for the day. So I want to believe we all understand what the term development communication means now. It's about deploying every means of communication, from radio to TV to newspaper to social media, towards bringing advancements to the people, to the doorstep of the people. One could actually start with a small community. It could be a water project, as against what I said in your Telegram class this morning. It could actually be a water project. Through photography, sometimes which we could actually bring people together. If, let's take for instance, we have a community suffering from good water. Most of these NGOs, what do? They send out letters, communicate to multinational companies on the need for them to actually look inwards to their immediate environment, so what's bringing good water to the people. That way, the moment the people of that immediate community get everything they need, not even everything, get hold of water, or get or make use of the water being provided by this NGO or being provided by this multinational company, they will be able to protect the interests of such company in their own environment. So as for the expression of development communication, it was apparently first used in the Philippines in 1917 by Professor Nora Quebral to designate the process of transmitting and communicating new knowledge related to rural environments, which is why we need also for our class to look inwards, look for a community where we can actually bring in our practical knowledge of the word development communication by deploying every means towards making sure that we cushion the effect of anything in a community that they found wanting, something they need, so we can actually make use of our own form of communication to make sure that, yes, with Summit University, or because Summit University is within this environment, they are able to do this for so and so community. So that will be all for this lecture. Thank you for your time. Please remember to subscribe and also like the page. Until next time we meet, say bye bye for now.